Je fais entrer. Et vous avez la possibilité de suivre aussi en anglais, en français.
There is live translation going on, so if you want to follow the live translation into English, you click on English at the bottom of your screen where there is a globe. Otherwise, you click on French. Hello, everyone.
Bonjour. Merci de garder vos micros éteints.
Please keep your mics muted. There's quite a few of us on this call.
Bonjour. Ok, donc je vais commencer tout de suite.
I think we're going to start now. We're ready.
Ok, donc merci à tous.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Just to mention, first of all, that there is live translation going on. If you need to follow the call into English, just click on the globe at the bottom of your screen.
Just click on the globe at the bottom of the screen and choose the language you wish to follow the session in. Donc, je vais commencer par m'introduire très brièvement.
First of all, I will introduce myself, Eva Radek. I'm in charge of the event and the coalition at Climate Change. Today, please send your questions or any comments on via the chat box. We will share your comments through the chat box, and then we can come back to that at the end. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this call. We've had more than 450 people registered. It shows that adaptation and water is a good topic that has been followed and popular. We are very glad to have you all on this call. A quick reminder on Climate Change, which is an international association founded in 2015, just prior to COP21, to federate all the non-state actors who are involved in fighting against climate change. Just to put this into a context, we started the second round of virtual workshops last February, last month, and we will have 2 workshops per month to cover all the various topics of our 9 African coalitions. And you can see all the details on our website with all the dates until mid-June. This virtual workshop is for adaptation and water and has been co-organized with the French Water Partnership, a member of the coalition. The purpose of this workshop, can you mute your mic, please? Thank you. The purpose of this workshop is to validate the new roadmap for 21-22. This roadmap was sent to all the members of the coalition and to the co-pilot of the coalition for a consultation. Thank you all of you for your feedback, which we were able to include. And now we will validate the roadmap together. Secondly, the second objective of this workshop is to move on regarding one of the actions of this roadmap, which is sharing good practices, best practices, mainly the mapping of actors in this area of water and adaptation, which is why we have identified projects which have been an inspiration to us. The third objective is to have an interactive time, an open discussion. Once again, please share your questions and your comments via the chat box, and we will have a Q&A session at the end. There will be a time of Q&A at the end of this workshop. Quickly, to present our speakers, we have Jean-Luc Redaud, who is a chairman of French Water Partnership. We also have Anil Mishra from Program Specialist at the Unesco. At Unesco, we also have Margot, who is a coordinator of program for Up to Green. She's representing Up to Green. We also have with us Kofi, who is in charge of programs for climate change and water management at the Conservation Alliance in Ghana. And finally, our last speaker will be Tarryn Quayle from UNA, and she will be talking about, from ICLEI-Africa, she'll be talking about nature in cities. Thank you all for being here with us. And thank you to also Alexandre, who will manage the Q&A session. And I will start now by giving the floor to Jean-Luc Redaud from French Water Partnership. You have 6 minutes, Jean-Luc. Thank you.
C'est juste un bouton avec le micro.
Bonjour tout le monde.
C'est bon. Hello everyone.
Oui. Voilà. Donc, j'interviens aujourd'hui. Alors, j'espère que vous voyez bien le PowerPoint. Au nom du
partenariat. You can all see this PowerPoint. I'm talking today on behalf of the French Water Partnership, which is a platform of about 150 members, French members from all backgrounds, administrations, private companies, NGOs, research people, and together they are looking to share their expertise and develop the issue of water on the international plan. It's 4 targets, 4 main objectives, priorities, which is to follow the SDGs, the climate change by please mute your mics, crisis. You have to mute, please mute. Keep your phones off. These 4 priorities, we are very active in the preparation of the next World Water Forum and the Water Forum Conference of 2022. We are very active.
On a les travaux récents, effectivement, non, avant.
Recently, we've done. These are recent publications which you might.
Un inventaire, notre propre inventaire des solutions intéressantes pour le climat qui sont mises en œuvre par des acteurs français en France, mais aussi à l'étranger. Il y a beaucoup d'actions à l'international. Donc, on a publié 2 plaquettes sur des solutions que j'appelle climato-sympathiques, qu'on vous invite à lire, que vous trouverez sur le site du partenariat français pour l'eau. On fait aussi beaucoup de plaidoyer général. On a sorti un petit film sur qu'est-ce que serait un petit monde à 4 degrés, qui est plutôt un document de sensibilisation. Et le dernier sujet, effectivement, qui est très important pour nous en plaidoyer, c'est la connaissance, qui nous paraît fondamentale, sur laquelle nous avons sorti 2 plaquettes sur, effectivement, de quels outils a-t-on besoin et que penser des nouveaux outils comme la télédétection pour faire face aux difficultés.
We have released 2 documents on this as well. So you can find all of these on our website. Now, what are our current actions? First of all, the advocacy on water and adaptation. What is the place of water and adaptation? Knowledge, innovation and transfer of technology, climate-friendly solutions, connection with the SDGs, and improvement of the CDN and the Green Deal and climate. We have 2 main expertise going on, one on what we call water saving and water management. You know what that entitles. There are a lot of innovations to become more autonomous in the management. A second expertise, which is also very important, what should we think about green energy production from biosphere and storage issues, problems. So these are 2 main expertise which we are running. We also have another expertise which we are developing protection against climate hazards and water hazards. So we do both advocacy and expertise. Another important thing is to improve and disseminate knowledge. With mitigation, water issues are local problems. Some regions have drought, others have flooding. So we've had to try to see how we can improve our knowledge. There will be a webinar on April 1st to try to touch base on the new knowledge, new weather data, to try to look at our whole system and how we can do more planning. We will run a great scientific day on October 5th. As an illustration, I would like to show you a graphic from the Research Institute for Development, which shows the evolution of water systems in Africa, in the Sahel. There's been a drop, a decline of the water data, which is very concerning. If we do not have reliable water data and the quality of the water, we cannot have relevant models, which is why we are trying to do a lot of efforts to improve knowledge and develop systems which will be more reliable, try to make up for the current difficulties. This is an important topic, and we've done quite a bit of publications on this topic, and we organize seminar on this as well. In our priorities regarding water have not really come up much new, but this is from the last report from the NDCs. As you can see, we always talk about agriculture and farming, but the first priority is the risks and hazards. Many countries are threatened by flooding, by typhoons. Therefore, the second priority is dealing with drought. The water, of course, is one of the key elements in climate change. What we have seen is that water is a priority in many areas. We also find, of course, in other areas, agriculture as a top priority. Farming is one of the main users of water. But cities and urban areas are also another important topic, because cities in Africa, there are many cities on the coastline which are threatened by the rise of the water level and the floodings. Therefore, cities, risks in cities and urban areas is just as important as agriculture. I'm just commenting on our common objectives on nature-based solutions. We can only but agree this is one of our priorities. Another important topic, I know this is something that's trendy. It's not just the only solution. The basic solution would be water saving. I've done a lot of expertise in the past. I've always been struck by the fact that there were some leakages and water wasting. And that's one of the first action which we can do is to better use water, to better manage water, and to avoid leakages. Let us not forget that other more classic solutions are important, like fighting against climate hazards and risks, like dams and such things, which can also be useful. So nature-based solutions should not lead us to forget that classic solutions, natural solutions, can be also useful, but I call win-win solutions like saving water, low-carbon solution, etc., are also important. Regarding the objectives of climate change, which we also agree with, access to information and access to finance is also an important aspect of fighting against climate change. The role of local governments is also very important. As I said, we do have an amount of work to do as to how to increase water, access to water. And we can, of course, use the new technology in our countries, and there's a lot of knowledge transfer to be done. In rural areas, maybe going back to the past could be useful. In our rich countries, we have forgotten the system of the water pumps or the water towers. For smaller villages which do not have access to electricity, at the end of the day, solar panel or water pumps could be a very useful system to help with the problem of water. So there are a whole range of things that we can do with our NGOs to look at the best solutions for the rural areas. Now, regarding our third objective, which is improving the coordination of our actions, to improve the coordination. France has always been at the top of this because of its expertise in water management. And also the last point on research and development. The problem of knowledge and lack of access to knowledge and lack of access to data is a huge problem and is a necessity to be able to manage all these water issues and water management in the villages, in cities, in rural areas, in agriculture, or in the industry. So therefore, we are completely complying to climate change priorities and objectives. And we will be working closely together. What we are doing could be very useful and could be valued within climate change. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this introduction of our workshop.
Anil Mishra. Anil has been working within UNESCO for over 15 years and is currently program specialist within the Intergovernmental Hydrological program. So he's with us today to present UNESCO's work on water in the African region. Anil, if you're ready, you have 8 minutes.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. Can you see
Perfect.
my screen? Yeah, okay. And you can hear, obviously. So thank you for giving me opportunity to say a few words about climate change impact on water sources in Africa, UNESCO Intergovernmental Hydrological Program perspective, where in the Secretariat I work in the section of hydrological system and water scarcity. As highlighted, water is the victim of climate change, and from this figure, which is around Lake Chad, shows the difficulties of water scarcity in the region. And I would like to take some of the message. Even this was African Union Summit 2008 Bit World, but it's still very much relevant. Water is and must remain a key to sustainable development in Africa, and that water supply and sanitation are prerequisite for Africa's human capital development. Now, if we look into the global risk assessment, which was released in this year, early this year, even though in this pandemic time, still climate action, biodiversity loss, extreme weather, natural disaster, human-made environmental disaster, in terms of 10 likelihood of risk are highlighted by Global Economic Forum in Davos, and similarly in terms of impact as well. Well, there is a vaccine rolling out to address the climate change, to address COVID-19, but there is no vaccine against climate change. And between 2030 and 2050, climate change is expected to cause approximately 250,000 additional deaths per year. And in the African context, it is very much to be noted as well. This slide shows there are 9 water challenges. Some of those was also presented by Jean-Luc. So provide safe drinking water, meeting SDG goal, ensure access to adequate sanitation, foster cooperation in transboundary basin, provide water for food security, hydropower, less than 10% it used in Africa, meet growing water demand, land degradation and water pollution, and manage water under global climate change, and enhance capacity to address water challenges. Those are the main challenges. And there are international goals and commitment which are centered around water. As I said, water is the victim of the climate change. So all goals, international commitments, Sendai Framework, Paris Agreement, even Africa Agenda 2063 are very much related to the water. And where we stand as Intergovernmental Hydrological Program, serving member states for 55 years, now we are moving from 8th phase of ISP to 9th phase of ISP, where the water security and achieving sustainable water management will be the key. There will be key areas: science, research, innovation, data and knowledge gap, and education and capacity building. We will be putting our emphasis in the member states. UNESCO also really advocates for open science to become more inclusive, cooperative, and more innovative, so that there is access to open hardware, open software, and open findings. And this is on that basis we are implementing several activities. We are also providing support through various hydrometeorological observation from satellite-based remote sensing. This particular project that we collaborated with University of California provide real-time precipitation data using satellite estimates. And one of this, the product developed within the framework of UNESCO's program is used by Namibia for their daily floods and drought bulletin. And this bulletin, based on satellite-based precipitation, is sent out to 600 recipients in the countries for domestic and international basin. So that provides opportunity to know about flow system in the region. I want to show a video teaser about droughts in the Anthropocene, the drought problem, which highlights the issues in Africa.
Is there supposed to be sound normally? Oh.
So this video shows drought impact, particularly in the context of Anthropocene and UNESCO's early work. 60, 70 years ago, UNESCO started building capacities. The video teaser, of course, gathers some of the slides from Africa, but also from elsewhere, from the region, Latin America, Caribbean, and Asia and Pacific. And the video also shows some of the solution oriented, like fog harvesting, other smart technologies. So this was the exhibition that we did recently. And there is a publication also. We have case from Lake Chad and Zambia about in this publication, which was shown in the teaser. And as UNESCO is an intergovernmental scientific program, it provides scientific information. Recently, we developed this web-based drought monitoring platform, which focuses also in Africa, and we prepared flood and drought monitoring system for Zambia and Mozambique. And now we are also working for Malawi, and also using different advancements in the technology like artificial intelligence, which can detect inundation changes in Mozambique. I'm just giving some example that we are helping member states. And recently, with the support of government of Japan, we developed flood early warning system for Niger and Volta River Basin, benefiting 11 member states, which was implemented during the pandemic time through e-learning capacity building. So we recently trained more than 270 experts from Niger and Volta River Basin on this flood early warning system. Which provides real-time inundation monitoring, river discharge, inundation animation, and also flood contingency planning. There are many other activities which are highlighted that UNESCO emphasizes. Also, we have developed human capacity development in Africa through European Union funded project. And as I told you, water is the victim of climate change. We need to also enhance capacity so that the resources that is available, the technology that is available can be used to address water resources challenges appropriately. And with that, we are planning to organize a conference on climate resilient water management, depending on the COVID situation in November. And I will be glad to welcome you in this conference. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Anil. That was perfect. And it was really interesting to see the link between the SDGs and water that you presented, and also the segment on open science. We think it links quite directly to some of the objectives that we wrote in our roadmap on access to research and information for African non-state actors too. So I'm now going to share the roadmap with you. I'm going to be quite brief because we don't have an enormous amount of time. Oh, I'm sorry, I just have a problem. I'm not helping. Here we go. Okay, so the roadmap is divided up into three main questions. Where are we now? Where do we want to go? And how do we get there? This roadmap was sent to our 500 plus members of the coalition, and we've integrated quite a few examples that were shared by the members. So the first part of the roadmap is basically we had to update all the information that we had from the roadmap back in 2018. Notably, just some data that we added in that we could share with you again after the workshop. Some examples of water solutions for water resources, and also some information on access to funding for adaptation and water for non-state African actors as well, with some examples that we had from past workshops as well. So in the part on where do we want to go, this is the part of the workshop of the roadmap where we really wanted to describe the global vision of the coalition for this year. And that includes, of course, the nature-based solutions that Jean-Luc talked about for adaptation of water, and how we want to align both the climate agenda with the biodiversity agenda 2021, because it's just becoming more and more evident that one can't be without the other. So these are the objectives that Jean-Luc presented. And then finally, in the third part, that is still open to consultation. Well, it was open to consultation up to today, but that we're now going to collectively validate, is the how do we get there? And in this section, we have two main actions. The first action being the dissemination of information. And this, we do it by using our mailing list that's been set up since 2018, and that we use to share relevant information on adaptation on water. This could be events, it can be calls for funding, it could be projects, best practices, etc. But we like to share relevant information as much as possible. And this is also a call for you to do the same, because we can do it as Climate Change team, but it's also great if it comes from the members as well. And then the second, yes, and there's also information related to funding opportunities, like I just said. And then the second main objective is to continue creating this network of actors and continue to spot more nature-based solutions that are led by non-state actors. So that's perfect link to what we're going to listen to right now. Okay, so if you have any questions on the roadmap, don't hesitate to share them in the chat right now, or to share them with us by email, and we'll get back to you. So I'm going to switch back to French. Donc, nous allons maintenant passer la parole à trois organisations.
We are going to hear from 3 organizations working on water-based solutions and adaptation on the African continent, and we hope that these projects could be a source of inspiration for you, for they are totally replicable with projects which took place in Senegal, a country that was mainly impacted with climate change because of the rise of the water level, the sea level, and we will also speak today about the mangrove swamp. We'll hand over to Margot. She's in charge of Up to Green, an organization. Margot, you have 8 minutes.
Bien, s'il vous plaît. D'accord. Alors, du coup, bonjour à tous. Je me présente.
Everyone.
Du
My
coup,
name
comme
is Margot.
Eva l'a dit, je suis
As Eva
coordinatrice
said,
technique
I'm
des
the
programmes
technical
Reforestation.
coordinator.
Et je suis particulièrement spécialisée sur la zone Afrique. Donc, en quelques mots, Up to Green Reforestation, c'est une ONG française qui soutient financièrement et techniquement des programmes de reboisement et d'agroforesterie communautaire à la fois en Amérique latine, en Amérique latine, en Afrique et en Asie. Donc voilà, on travaille particulièrement sur des zones tropicales. Et depuis 2018, on travaille également au développement de filières favorables à la préservation de la biodiversité, comme des filières apicoles. Voilà. On travaille actuellement au Mexique, en Colombie, en Inde, au Bénin et au Sénégal. Voilà. Donc, diapo suivante, s'il vous plaît. Donc, pour répondre au thème de l'atelier Adaptation, eau et Afrique, je vous propose de vous présenter le projet qu'on soutient depuis 10 ans au Sénégal, aux côtés de l'Océanium de Dakar. Donc, pour vous présenter tout d'abord le contexte. Donc, la mangrove, qu'est-ce que c'est? C'est un écosystème que l'on retrouve dans les zones de transition entre le littoral et les terres, et qui sont soumis à l'influence des marées et qui est présent dans la quasi-totalité des zones littorales subtropicales. Donc, c'est une forêt immergée qui est principalement constituée de palétuviers qui appartiennent au genre Rhizophora, Eocenia, Chronocarpus et d'autres genres. Mais il y a très peu d'espèces de palétuviers, il y a à peu près 6 espèces qui poussent. Donc voilà, par contre, il y a une très grosse diversité faunistique qui se développe dans la mangrove, donc aussi bien des oiseaux, des singes, des amphibiens, enfin, ça abrite une grosse diversité au niveau de la faune. Donc, c'est un habitat qui est indispensable à la reproduction des espèces comme les poissons et les crustacés. Et ça sert de vivier pour les oiseaux et d'autres espèces. C'est un écosystème qui est très important parce qu'elle procure du bois de construction et de nombreuses ressources de pêche aux habitants locaux. Donc, par exemple, au Sénégal, là, on travaille, les femmes récoltent les huîtres, les hommes beaucoup vont pêcher. Enfin, c'est vraiment une très grosse ressource pour la sécurité alimentaire. Et c'est un rôle très important car elle joue un rôle de tampon entre les eaux douces et les eaux salées, et donc prévient l'avancée de la langue salée sur les terres. Donc, la mangrove est très importante pour la lutte contre le changement climatique, car c'est un écosystème qui a un très fort potentiel de stockage de carbone atmosphérique unité de surface, à la fois dans les palétuviers et dans les sédiments. Et c'est un écosystème qui permet de protéger les littoraux face aux aléas climatiques. Donc, on s'est rendu compte que les littoraux où il y avait de la mangrove ont beaucoup moins subi les conséquences de tsunamis, par exemple. Et ensuite, c'est un écosystème, là où on travaille, qui est très important, en tout cas, là où on travaille pour les communautés. Donc, là où on travaille, c'est des communautés Diola, qui sont une ethnie qui vit principalement de la riziculture à proximité de la mangrove et de la pêche. Et c'est la mangrove qui protège les espaces rizicoles de la salinisation. Diapo suivante, s'il vous plaît. Donc voilà. Du coup, le programme des mangroves et des hommes qu'on soutient depuis 10 ans avec l'Océanium de Dakar. Donc tout d'abord, l'Océanium de Dakar, c'est une association sénégalaise de protection des ressources naturelles. On a commencé en 2011 avec eux pour le reboisement de mangroves et depuis 2018, on a commencé un projet pilote de préservation d'un riz local qui est très important pour les rituels des ethnies Diola et qui est très important pour conserver la diversité des semences et c'est aussi une espèce plus adaptée au réchauffement climatique. Il n'y a plus de diapo du coup. Je ne sais pas ce qui se passe. Eva? Oui, bon, du coup, donc voilà. Ensuite, du coup, les bénéficiaires, comme je vous l'ai dit, c'est les villages qui sont situés à proximité de la mangrove. On a travaillé aussi avec des riziculteurs et on est en train de travailler avec un groupement d'intérêt économique de femmes pour un projet apicole pour la production de miel de mangrove. Donc voilà les objectifs de ce programme. Donc là, on est sur le slide objectif. Voilà. Merci. Oui, c'est du coup de reboiser la mangrove, de prévenir la salinisation des terres, restaurer les ressources halieutiques et stocker du carbone. Donc, voilà, diapo suivante, s'il vous plaît. Donc voilà, juste pour faire une brève présentation des résultats depuis 2011, donc il y a à peu près 1000 hectares qui ont été reforestés en Basse-Casamance. Donc comme on peut le voir sur la carte qui est présentée, bon, je ne sais pas si c'est assez gros, mais toutes les zones colorées sont les zones qui ont été reboisées. Donc la photo à droite, on peut voir une parcelle qui a été reboisée, par exemple, qui a été plantée en 2012. On peut voir qu'elle a été totalement reboisée, donc c'est des résultats plutôt positifs. Et pour les perspectives à partir de 2021, on pense pouvoir reboiser 300 hectares par an grâce au soutien financier qu'on a actuellement. Donc voilà, diapo suivante, s'il vous plaît. Ensuite, concernant, donc on a vraiment cette partie de reboisement de mangrove, mais aussi la partie développement d'activités favorables à la préservation de l'environnement. Donc le but, c'est aussi de sensibiliser les communautés locales en leur montrant que grâce à la préservation de la mangrove, on peut développer des activités à forte valeur ajoutée comme l'agriculture et la production de miel de mangrove qui est un miel à très forte valeur ajoutée. Donc on avait commencé un projet pilote en 2019 avec la formation de 6 bénéficiaires dans 3 villages pilotes. Et donc voilà, donc aujourd'hui, on commence leur première récolte. Et là, pour voir plus grand, en 2021, l'objectif, c'est vraiment de former un groupement économique de femmes pour aller jusqu'à la vente du miel de mangrove et d'étendre un peu les bénéficiaires. Et voilà, pour faire plus rapide aussi, on a aussi créé une banque de semences d'un riz qui est plus adaptée au changement climatique, qui résiste mieux à la salinisation des terres et aux sécheresses. C'était un riz qui était perdu à cause de la diffusion d'un riz asiatique pendant des années et qu'on a réintroduit avec des riziculteurs qui désiraient le cultiver de nouveau pour leur culture et pour l'adaptation au changement climatique. Donc voilà, diapo suivante, s'il vous plaît. Donc la réplicabilité du projet, tout d'abord, du coup, oui, pardon. Du coup, c'est un projet qui est très réplicable parce que déjà, il y a énormément de financement. Il y a une grosse priorité qui est mise sur la préservation des zones humides dans les financements actuellement pour les mangroves, pour l'adaptation au changement climatique. Pardon. Oui, pardon, excusez-moi, j'avais mis le minuteur. Du coup, voilà, il y a beaucoup de financement pour ce type de projet parce que la mangrove, c'est aussi un fort potentiel de stockage carbone. Il y a beaucoup de financements qui sont intéressés aussi pour du coup, le reboisement de la mangrove. Aussi, il y a beaucoup d'acteurs qui travaillent sur la mangrove, donc il y a une possibilité de fédérer un réseau multi-acteurs pour partager les bonnes pratiques, mais c'est quand même un reboisement qui est assez facile à faire et assez facile à expliquer aux communautés locales, surtout pour les gens rhizophora. Et le plus important pour la réplicabilité du projet, c'est surtout la mobilisation des communautés. Donc, c'est vraiment faire faire participer les communautés, les rendre acteurs et leur faire comprendre l'importance grâce au développement d'activités alternatives pour la préservation des mangroves. Donc ça, c'est vraiment la force de notre partenariat avec l'Océanium, c'est vraiment leur force de mobilisation des populations pour la préservation de la mangrove. Donc voilà. Donc
That's it for me. Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation, Margot. Now we will move on to our second project in Ghana. Kofi.
We're very happy to have you with us today. You now have 8 minutes to present the impressive work led by Conservation Alliance. Whenever you're ready.
All right, I'm ready. I've been ready. And first, good afternoon, everybody. I think maybe for the starters, if we could check the pace at which the French and the English translation, because it goes at the same time, it makes it difficult to actually follow up. So just to make sure, so I'll be speaking English, obviously, but at least I can say bon après-midi, mes amis, tout le monde, I could say that to everybody else. So just let me just share my screen too, 1 second.
Okay.
I don't know, can you see the screen?
Yep. Perfect.
All right, perfect, okay, good. Well, so my name is Kofi and I work with Conservation Alliance. Let me just, good. And I'm going to talk about a simple topic, transforming agricultural landscapes in northern Ghana using the paved irrigation technology. And just to, before I get into, let me use a few, 1 minute to talk about my organization. We are an environmental organization focused on conserving biodiversity for human well-being. And our mission is to be a catalyst for biodiversity conservation, ultimately to improve socioeconomic conditions of French communities. And our intervention areas are mainly conservation cocoa programs behind climate change, REDD+. We are very much active in water, sanitation, hygiene, natural resource management. And currently we are operational in Ghana, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, and Cameroon. But of course, I'm talking from Ghana. Well, so just an overview of Ghana's situation, particularly in the northern landscape. Well, it is known to be part of the breadbasket regions. When we say breadbasket regions in northern Ghana, we mean areas with huge potential for agricultural productivity, and at the same time, there's potential for human labor as well. So there's great opportunity to grow crops there. But we have a problem there, and the situation is that agricultural productivity is still very low, and we've seen over a period with research and demonstration that under improved water and land management conditions, productivity of crops and farmers could grow more than 100%. But there's a situation where we see climate change as actually impeding this progress and affecting productivity. And we can all tell the attendant impact of low yields, high levels of poverty, malnutrition, and so on and so forth. And of course, the social impact, the migration among the youth. Well, so the situation, as I was mentioning again, that you have a situation where you have excess water, a lot of water during the rainy season, lots of water, sometimes actually get flood plains, like you can see with this upper part picture, a lot of flood issues there. So it affects the ability to even crop the land. And the interesting thing is that during the dry season, there's absolutely no water at all, and makes agricultural activity very difficult because water is very critical. And just to give you a fair idea, the flooding can last from 3 days to 3 months, and it can be as low as, let's say, 0.5 meters and can be as high as 10 meters, and even more than that. So just to give you a situation about how flooding can be very devastating in the landscape. So generally, for some time now, we did some research since 2004 all the way to this period, where we've seen that there's a desire for farmers to actually grow more crops, and they are looking at the opportunity where they can actually take advantage of the water that comes during the flood season and use it for agricultural production during the dry season. So it's a double win situation. Well, so Conservation Alliance had the opportunity to demonstrate the paved irrigation technology, and with funding from USAID and the International Water Management Institute. So first and foremost, I just want to briefly talk about the paved irrigation technology being a system that captures water from flooded lands, it filters it and injects it into underground aquifers and unsaturated soil layers. The potential is that it can irrigate up to 5 acres per irrigation system, and we call it a context-based technology because It's context-based in the sense that every system is applicable to the situation that you find yourself in. So there are some places the flooding will be faster, other places it's more stagnant. So we take all of these things into consideration in developing the irrigation technology. And we are doing this, as I mentioned, under the PAVE technology. And in Northern Ghana, we are actually doing it in 8 communities now. Well, so far we did it, and we worked, as I mentioned, with funding from USAID under the Agricultural Technology Transfer Program. And we didn't only just demonstrate the technology, but what we did was that we started with the cultivation of high-valued vegetables, like cucumber, as you can see with the picture with the field officer demonstrating the cucumber, chili pepper. All we're looking at is the potential to use the land to cultivate crops that can attract income during the lean season. So we looked at the vegetables that are of high demand, but during the dry season or the lean season, you wouldn't be able to have it. So, so far we're working directly with about 322 farmers in this pilot phase. So people often ask me, so what goes into constructing the technology? How do you go about it? First and foremost, we engage stakeholders, we work with the communities, we ask farmers questions to have a fair idea as to what the situation is. We also do our site assessment, we do the soil sampling, we do the installation of the irrigation system, and we construct the filtration system. And again, after doing all of that, we use it to crop the fields. Now, the question will be, again, people also ask me that, where do you get the materials to construct this technology? And then the answer is that you can get it from any country in the world. So that is one reason why that makes the technology context-based, in the sense that you can actually get it from Ghana, anywhere you are, and build. So you don't need to be importing special parts to actually be able to do that. So these are just pictures of some of the activities we go through in selecting a place. So for example, engaging communities, taking data on the flooding nature over there, taking soil samples. We drill, because as I said, we inject the water underground. So we drill to create a hole, which will fix in pipes, which will be the medium to transfer the water underground. When it's fixed in there, we create, with this picture here, we create something we call the filtration bed. The picture at the top right is the filtration bed. The idea is that we put in system that when the flood water gets in, it is filtered before it's injected underground. And again, the question will be that when the water goes underground, how do you extract it? We use a submersible pump. Again, another question that I often hear is that when the water is extracted, how do you use it? So in order to enhance the efficient use of water, we use the drip irrigation system to make sure the water is actually efficiently used. And this is a clear case where we're teaching our farmers how to install the drip irrigation technology. Well, so the question becomes, what has been the impact so far? So at the household level, for those who know the northern part of Ghana, where the dry season is a really food insecure moment, the technologies and the project has been very beneficial for the growth of leafy vegetables like brow, okra, and even fruits like watermelon, cucumbers, and vegetables, and so on. And again, after selling some of these vegetables, which were not consumed at home, on the average, every farmer was made an increment in income. And so there's potential for us to do it big, cultivate more areas, and the impact is going to be much more than we are seeing now. So I'm just showing this is another picture. I think somebody's microphone is on. Could you please mute your microphone? And so there's a picture over there. Now the second picture you see down there, this man here runs a restaurant in the northern part of Ghana. There's a town called Tamale. It's one of the regional capitals. And he has a restaurant called Chaks. And the project has been supplying him with the cucumbers for the restaurant. So that's one example. Well, so again, what are some of the social environmental impacts? Because we are looking at climate change. So in the northern part of Ghana, there's a high rate of migration from among young women and young men to the southern part of Ghana to be involved in labor-intensive activities, normally called kayaye. So in our communities, because there's a potential to cultivate crops in the dry season, migration rate has reduced. And again, that minimizes the exposure to gender-based violence in the southern part of the country. Decreased farming activities in riparian buffers, because these are the areas that during the dry season there's water. It's also increased communal bonding, increased interest in vegetable farming, and also increased knowledge on integrated pest management. So these are part of the things that we are getting from the project. Well, the question is, so what's your scaling plan? Well, we intend to increase the number of people that we are involved with as far as our current areas are concerned. we are looking at a profit-based model. So what we are doing is that we are using a demand-driven approach where we are partnering with a company called Pattern Foods Limited, which actually trades or markets fresh vegetables as a way of making sure that there's assured demand for farmers' productivity. In the same vein too, we are looking at partner with hotels and restaurants in Tamale, which is a big place in northern Ghana, as a way of always purchasing the vegetables that the farmers do. Again, we are looking at a contract farming model where farmers can be provided with the seeds, fuel, water, and they can also be supportive with labor. And at the same time, the company can recoup its investments. So I don't know if I've already exhausted all my 8 minutes, but just want to give you an idea that this is what we've been doing. As you can see with the fields, farmers harvesting the leafy vegetables and all of it under drip kit irrigation. And I want to tell you something. In the past, before we started this project, there was a lot of skepticism about how drops of water could make a plant grow. Farmers were very skeptical about it.
Okay. Well, I think we've lost
this was one clear opportunity. This is one clear opportunity for them to actually take advantage and know that you can actually use drop of water to grow crops. So I want to end here and I want to say thank you very much, everybody. And I'm always open for question and answer session. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Brilliant. Thank you. Merci, Par, for that presentation and for all the links that you made between water, agriculture, the economy, nature and biodiversity, etc. So now we're going to jump straight into the work that ICLEI-Africa is doing. Tarryn, I'm just going to ask you to present straight away because we're a bit limited in time. So you have 7 minutes.
Sure. Can you see the screen okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Great. Okay. So thank you so much and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to try and be as brief as possible because I know we're very limited with time. But I just wanted to share some kind of high-level insights about the water, climate and nature projects that ICLEI actually undertakes. So ICLEI, for those who don't know, is actually a network. It's the world's largest and oldest network of cities globally. And we work around 5 different interconnected pathways. So we look at resilient development, at equitable and people-centered development, low emission development, nature-based development and circular development, and bringing them all together to kind of formulate a movement of local governments, of cities towards sustainable development and a better urban environment. And one of the projects I'd like to share with you today is actually called UNA, so Urban Natural Assets for Africa. And the UNA program is actually been running for 7 years in 6 countries in 8 cities. And the idea behind the UNA program is to actually try and mainstream nature into land use planning through the lens of climate resilience. So we know that often, especially in the city context, the urban planners have one budget, one agenda, one plan, and the environmentalists, be it climate change, disaster risk reduction, they're working on a different sector plan with a different budget. And the idea was to say, well, if we want to truly mainstream nature and we want to look at how you can use nature-based solutions, we need to get them into the urban plans. And I think what's different about the UNA project from the typical kind of top-down development projects and programs is it's a very reflective and very needs-based project. So what it's actually trying to do is look at how to be context specific to actually increase your impact. So what do we need from the bottom up to adopt a participatory and a co-production approach to actually say, what are the needs in the city? What are the gaps? What are the opportunities? And then actually develop the specific activities for that city around those needs. One particular example is in most of the cities, we've actually undertaken kind of a provisional mapping. So we all know, we've heard before, data is important, but there seems to be a lack of data on what ecosystem services there are, what is their status, are they degraded, are they doing well, and how can we actually prioritize working with those ecosystems and then actually integrate them both into urban planning. And in Kampala, we did this, and it gave us the opportunity to actually integrate the recommendations for nature into the development of the Disaster Risk Reduction Action Plan. So we know that it gets mainstreamed, and it actually gives kind of some emphasis in terms of how to build that into larger programs. It also gives the opportunity to design projects and interventions in a way that they plug in and support existing work. So one of the critical aspects of this project is that it actually allows room for experimentation. So we know in Africa, working with cities, we have high levels of informality. And I think the traditional approach is largely to actually try and formalize that informality. But instead, this project is looking at how we can actually work with that informality, how we can identify different planning approaches in the urban environment and use adaptive management approaches. And one such one was urban tinkering. So we applied this in in Kisumu in Kenya, and it's looking at making small tweaks or experiments within the urban environment through a walking workshop where we had a diverse range of stakeholders, NGOs, CBOs, different municipal apartments, academics, all together. We actually walked to transect along a river, which was creating challenges for waste management, for flooding, for pollution, for safety, and identified what nature-based solutions could actually be applied within that environment to actually build the resilience of those urban communities. Moving on quite quickly, I think we all know the term that no knowledge is like local knowledge. And I think the Thrive app was developed for Android phones through this project. And it's essentially a list or a collation of 60 nature-based solutions that provide a step-by-step process as to how we can implement nature-based solutions, be it at a household level, right up to schools and to citywide for various themes such as food, water, energy, soil, health, and habitat. And we've actually been working with the municipality of Entebbe recently in Uganda, where, you know, with COVID, there's great challenges in terms of food security, great challenges in terms of economic ability to actually, you know, work on building homesteads and building up communities. And there's an increase in the use or the exploitation of natural resources, of ecosystems. So we worked with communities there, working through some of the solutions on the Thrive app, co-developing what will work there, such as the planting of indigenous trees for soil stabilization, urban farming, composting, with the idea this can be applied at scale and it can benefit other communities. There's two other key aspects within the program that I think are important to mention. So one is that change happens through process. And a lot of our projects focus on developing resources which are critically important. So, you know, this project has developed numerous resources, including 11 handbooks, looking at everything from what are the pillars of urban natural assets, what are those alternative planning approaches which can be applied, how can we work with informality, and how can we support dialogues between local and national government. We've developed a series of 8 impact stories, which look at really drilling down into not just what are the outputs, but what are those processes that we need to nurture, to create enabling environments for in terms of shift of from practice to reform. How can we really mainstream nature into planning? How can we actually apply multi-level governance approaches and co-production processes? And how are some of those learnings, how have they changed how we think? How have they built capacity at the local level? And then, you know, really around those resources, it's just to say that we need to focus on capturing the processes, which I think this project is really focused on, and opening up those opportunities to build relationships and to really generate an enabling environment, which is critical for mainstreaming. And then finally, finance. The project also looks at what tools are available to make a stronger case for finance for nature-based solutions and to really allow cities to realize their visions and their opportunities in terms of putting nature-based solutions on the ground. And before I close, which is a really, really quick high-level overview, I'd also just like to share this network with you, which is called Cities with Nature. So Cities with Nature essentially is a movement or a network of cities trying to look at how they can mainstream nature within the urban environment. And the Cities with Nature initiative was launched with ICLEI, the Nature Conservancy, and IUCN, and it provides a variety of resources. So it has a knowledge hub, which provides resources from ICLEI, from other partners, that can assist cities and urban environments in terms of mainstreaming nature at the local level. It also provides a registry that cities can join up to, which can actually allow them to track their progress in terms of nature in the urban environment, to profile their milestones, to share case studies, and to share key outcomes within the kind of urban community, but also with academics, with other partners. So I think for the few minutes that we do have, that's a really, really quick kind of overview of some of the initiatives and the projects we're doing. So I'd really encourage anybody who's interested, please do let me know, and I will put my email address in the chat. We also have some awesome videos which showcase kind of participatory co-production processes, alternative ways to do capacity development and learning, which we're happy to share the links with. So thank you very much for your time. And yeah, I'm happy for any questions, and I'll share some links in the chat. So thank you, Eva.
Thank you, Tarryn, for this wonderful presentation. And just for information, we'll be sharing all the presentations that were used today to all of our participants as well. Donc, merci à tous nos intervenants aujourd'hui.
Thank you to all of our speakers today. I'm now going to hand over to Alexandre, who will manage this short Q&A session. Over to you, Alexandre. Many of you were asking questions throughout this seminar, some very relevant questions. Unfortunately, we won't have time to cover them all. As Eva was saying, all the presentations will be given to you. So I would ask all our speakers just to leave their email addresses. If there are any technical questions, one in particular, what solutions to conserve? That was another question. What are the levers to activate and how to do it to have quick and efficient mobilization for nature-based solutions? This was a question.
Water finance facility, lobbying, citoyen, recherche et développement, communication.
Research, development, communication, etc. What are the levers that can be activated? This is a question to all of our speakers. Maybe Jean-Luc could start, but all of you can actually say what you want about this. What do you think about the levers? Two things. Not everything goes through nature-based solutions. All that you've heard of many projects which are ongoing. You have database. One was quoted just now. The French Water Partnership has a list of solutions. There's a good database for solutions that can be found. It's interesting because it helps to face the issue of resilience. And we have to work in planning. We have to work in an unknown world. We don't know what will happen. So we have to come up with some solutions which can adapt to an uncertain future. We have many examples to give in our country, in France, for example. When we want to fight against flooding as much as possible, sometimes you have to build dams But if not, you have to sacrifice lands, or you can turn some lands into meadows, for example, to find solutions against flooding. There are many solutions which could be a source of inspiration for many. Yet, basic solutions like water saving are also important and should be a priority.
Tarryn, if you have any comments on these questions? Votre micro, je sais.
Tarryn?
Margot peut-être. Non, c'est bon, le micro de Tarryn est activé.
Sorry, let me just turn interpretation off. Yeah, I think I concur with the comments that have been made. I think from our side, you know, at a city level, there's still some work to be done in terms of moving from kind of understanding and wanting to implement nature-based solutions to actually being able to put them on the ground. And that's largely coming from a finance perspective, but it's also coming from this need to integrate development across different sectors so that you're not just beholden on one sector. You have an integrated plan and you can mainstream nature-based solutions, climate resilience across urban policies and planning. So that is critical to work on that enabling environment. And a lot of what we are doing is to look at where those opportunities are, where those leverage points are to actually bolster that enabling environment so that if you can find the resources, you can actually then ensure that the framework is there to support it moving forward. And I think finally, it's about connecting with communities of best practice, communities of partners and collaborations. Eva, you said this about, you know, the main objectives of climate change is to have this coalition, to have all these different actors coming together. And it's to leverage those opportunities to really share that knowledge. I think we do so many great projects, we do so many good interventions, but we often fall down in sharing them and sharing particularly those lessons, the good, the bad, and the ugly that can actually help somebody moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Margot, peut-être un petit commentaire pour finir.
Oui, attendez.
On vous entend en tout cas.
C'est bon, j'ai remis la caméra, je suis toujours là. Du coup, j'ai vu qu'il y avait quelques questions qui ont été posées, donc j'ai donné mon adresse.
Directly to me, so I left my email address if people want to talk about this.
Sur la réplicabilité du projet, sur des
replicability of the project.
Oui, alors après, j'ai pas très bien compris de quoi on parlait vraiment pour les oasis, si c'était vraiment des...
About oases and lakes. I think the question was regarding replicability with swamps or lake. Could we replicate these mangrove projects?
Oui, c'est ça. En fait, c'est dans un équilibre. C'est de l'eau saumâtre où il y a un équilibre entre l'eau de la mer et les eaux douces. Donc non, c'est pas vraiment un projet qui est sur les littoraux, dans les embouchures de fleuves et sur les littoraux. Donc, c'est pas possible en eau douce. Après, voilà, il faut voir les zones où elle est présente naturellement aussi, parce que le but, c'est pas de créer un écosystème là où il n'existait pas à la base. Donc,
where it already exists, not where it does not exist. We need to look at an area or a zone where it is possible.
Donc voilà.
Ça marche. Merci Margot pour ce complément. Eva, du coup, je te redonne la main peut-être.
Oui, c'était très court comme un moment de questions-réponses, mais
on va short Q&A session. We can communicate again in the future, of course.
Je n'ai plus qu'à remercier tout le monde d'avoir participé.
I can thank everyone once again. I want to thank you for taking part, for all those who have listened to us, for all of our speakers.
Mais aussi des projets que j'espère
for all the projects that have been shared.
Des participants aujourd'hui. Donc, je pense que cet atelier a été très important.
I think this workshop was very important to validate this roadmap for 2021. Now we need to move on on the various actions we've had. These were the first projects of many more in the future. Also to mention our website, Climate Change, where you will see a list of our activities. We share information. You will find a climate library, a list of our actions. You can also share your ongoing projects. You can also look at the map to find similar projects to yours.
Donc voilà, je n'ai vraiment plus qu'à vous remercier à tous.
So all I have to say now is thank you again for participating to this workshop, and we will meet again
pour les prochains ateliers. La prochaine atelier est sur l'énergie.
On energy,
à la thématique de l'eau.
Which could also be linked to water. In 2 weeks' time, and then on April 1st on mobility. I will see you soon. And you will receive all the information next week.
Merci.
Thank you very much.
Merci, Eva.
À très bientôt.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Merci Jean-Luc.
Bye bye.
Au revoir, au revoir.